Ken Delanian, our national security reporter in D.C. Ken, what do you make of the emails? I just read that Mackie Haberman from the New York Times had said Don Jr. put these emails out really to scoop the Times because they were about to release them. What do they tell you?
Steph, this may be the most extraordinary development yet in this whole Trump-Russia saga because, as you know, for months, Donald Trump and his associates have been denying that there was any coordination, any collusion with the Russian government, that they were even aware of any attempts by the Russian government to help the Trump campaign. But here in black and white, and I just want to read this to you from Rob Goldstone, who set up this meeting with the lawyer you just referred to Donald Trump Jr. on June 3rd, 2016. The Crown Prosecutor of Russia met with his father, Aras, that's Aras Agalarov, an oligarch in Russia, this morning, and in their meeting offered to provide the Trump campaign with some official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary and her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to your father. This is obviously very high-level and sensitive information, but is part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump, helped by Aras and Amin. So there it is in black and white. The Trump campaign being told that the Russian government wanted to help their effort. And there's other references in here to alerting Mr. Trump through his personal assistant, but I wanted to go to you first, Don Jr. And Don Jr., instead of calling the FBI, instead of alerting authorities to this effort by the Russian government, took the meeting, as we know now.
And the response, which is important, so that email that you just read from was June 3rd at 10:36 in the morning. At 10:53 the same morning, less than 20 minutes later, Don Jr. responds to Rob Goldstone and, among other things, says, "If it's what you say, I love it." So that disabuses everyone of this idea that he did not know, A, what might be coming. He may not know the specific content, but he did know it was information gleaned by the Russian government in support of Donald Trump's presidency that he wanted to hand over to Donald Trump Jr., number one, and number two, that there was no surprise about where this was coming from, that it was official government information. This is stuff that Donald Trump Jr. has contradicted in the last few days.
You're absolutely right. It's stunning. And to be clear, as this lawyer describes the meeting, that's really not what transpired. She, according to her account and according to Donald Jr.'s account, there really wasn't any substantial incriminating information that she was able to pass on. And she really wanted to talk about these sanctions relating to this adoption issue. But what it shows is that Donald Trump Jr. and people around him were willing to take this meeting, willing to engage on this issue, and were put on notice by their associates that the Russian government wanted to try to help them. And at one point, Rob Goldstone refers to this woman as the Russian government lawyer. Now, she says she has no official ties to the Russian government, but she's clearly lobbying on a cause that's near and dear to the Russian government's heart, which is lifting sanctions that are called the Magnitsky Act and having to do with human rights violators in Russia. But again, this is an incredible development, guys.
Before Sally Yates was fired, one of the risks she said the White House was in was that Russians would be in a position to blackmail Mike Flynn. The fact that John Jr. took this meeting and Jared Kushner was in the room and Paul Manafort was in the room, not that they gained information, but if the Russian government had that information that they knew these gentlemen took this meeting, these emails existed.
After saying that there was no such meeting.
After saying no such meeting took place, after they repeatedly said this is false, this is untrue. Knowing that information, could that be blackmail-worthy content that the Russian government could use against the Trump team?
I mean, just as a matter of common sense, it would seem that it could be, right? But I think people are going to be asking the question, given these facts, given this email that we've seen, is this a crime? Is this illegal? And I've actually been doing some reporting on that and talking to lawyers, both Democrats and Republicans, who practice in this area. And surprisingly, they say it's not necessarily a crime. There's no statute that makes it a crime to collude with a foreign government to win an election. If money didn't change hands, it's not espionage, it's not spying, it's not turning over secrets to Russia. There is a crime of failing to report that you're a foreign agent. That's not applicable here. And so this is one of the reasons, sources tell me, that the FBI is looking so hard at financial transactions. They're looking at what else is here. If the Russian government was trying to cultivate the Trump team and its associates, were they also doing business deals? Was there anything illicit in that? But certainly, this issue of collusion and this email is going to be a factor, legal experts tell me, in Bob Mueller's investigation going forward.
And
guys.
there is a specific infraction at the very least when it comes to Jared Kushner, because this is the third time that he has not disclosed a meeting with someone who purportedly represents or has information from the Russian government. So while Donald Jr. may not have committed any crime, and we still don't know because this information flows out at quite a rate, Jared Kushner continues to not disclose relationships that he has with Russians or people representing
But
Russian
Jared's
officials.
attorney has repeatedly said he will speak openly when he's called by the committee.
Well, let's hope that
Yeah,
happens.
you know, this issue of disclosure is certainly a live one here because, there's a question about did Mike Flynn lie to the FBI? And there's a question, as you said, about whether Jared Kushner was forthcoming on his security clearance forms about all these foreign contacts. Now, it's not often that people get prosecuted for failing to disclose those kind of meetings, but if there's a pattern and if there's a criminal intent, that's where you're facing some legal jeopardy, folks.
All right, Ken, thanks very much for